In a moment that shook the silence of the Sistine Chapel's marble corridors, a voice once destined to wear the fisherman's ring finally broke through the mystery. The world held its breath. The smoke had cleared. The white cassock had been chosen, but it was not for Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle. And now, after weeks of solemn quiet, the man once hailed as the Asian Francis has finally spoken. In a heart-wrenching moment, Luis Tagle, once a top contender for the papacy, has finally broken his silence. His first words, delivered in hushed, deliberate tones, were unlike anything Vatican watchers expected. Filled with raw emotion, deep faith, and what some describe as a spiritual tremble, Tagle did not speak as a defeated man, but as a disciple. Walking with Christ through Gethsemane, many believed he would remain composed, dignified, a silent servant of the Church. But what he revealed in his first public comments has left even veteran bishops shaken. What does it mean for the Church's future that the man so often compared to Pope Francis, so gentle, so open-hearted, was passed over? And why now, as the world looks anxiously to Pope Leo XIV, does Tagle's voice seem to echo even louder? In the sacred hush of a Vatican interview, Cardinal Tagle shared a deeply moving memory from the final moments of the conclave. Ballot was cast, the air so thick with holy tension that one could hear hearts beating. Tagle noticed Cardinal Robert Provost, Pope Leo XIV, grasping his rosary white-knuckled, eyes fixed toward heaven. In that moment, Tagle, with childlike sincerity, reached into his pocket and handed Prevost a candy. "For courage," he whispered, "for peace." The moment, now immortalized among insiders, was described by one cardinal as the soul of humility, offering sweetness to the man about to bear the weight of the world. But that gesture was not a mask for bitterness. It was a cross. And Tagle has carried it quietly until now. When asked what he felt upon seeing the world cheer for another man in white, Tagle paused. His eyes welled up, whispered, "I saw Christ in him. And I asked God, what do you see in me now?" That single line has exploded across religious social media, with theologians and faithful Catholics reflecting on its depth. Some call it a new quote for the ages, a hidden psalm of the modern church. Tagle's unexpected reaction, so human, so honest, has reignited global debate. Was this not the man perfectly suited to bring hope to Asia, healing to the wounded, and fire to a cooling faith? Was the conclave swayed by politics, by power blocks, or divine mystery? Rumors continue to swirl. Inside reports suggest Tagle led early ballots, but then something changed. A swell of support shifted in the final round, towards Parolin, the seasoned diplomat many expected. But to Cardinal Prevost, an American outsider with a reputation for integrity and silence, the drama was not merely political. It was spiritual warfare wrapped in red robes. Tagle, though offered a seat of quiet prestige, was left carrying the invisible weight of what might have been. And yet he does not despair. In his first homily after the conclave, delivered quietly at a small parish in Manila, Tagle spoke not of loss, but of resurrection. Sometimes, he said, the stone is not rolled away from your tomb, but you are still called to rise. Vatican observers rewatched the video in disbelief. It was not a concession speech. It was a sermon for the remnant church. And in the pews, many believed they were witnessing something greater than a missed papacy. They were seeing a martyr of ambition, one who surrendered his own glory for obedience. And then came the twist that no one expected. Reports now confirm that Pope Leo XIV, aware of the heavy spiritual and emotional cost Tagle bore, summoned him privately to the Apostolic Palace just days after his election. The content of their meeting remains officially undisclosed, but leaked whispers suggest Pope Leo took Tagle's hand, kissed it gently, and said only, "You are not second. You are my first brother." What did this mean? Was Tagle promised a major role? Was this a symbolic gesture, or the beginning of a plan deeper than anyone outside those Vatican walls understands? Then, without fanfare, the announcement came. Cardinal Luis Tagle had been granted the ancient titular bishopric of Albano, a symbolic gesture with deep historical meaning. It was not the papacy, but it was not a dismissal either. It was a message. A reminder. Tagle is still on the chessboard, still consecrated. Still burning with the Spirit, the faithful continue to wonder, why did God say not yet to Tagle? What greater purpose is unfolding? Could it be that the man who lost the papacy will in fact save the Church through another path? And now, a storm brews quietly across Catholic communities. The laity has begun whispering of a new kind of leader in the throne of Peter, but in the heart of the people. Some call him the people's pope, a shepherd for those whose faith survives not because of hierarchy, but because of hope. His words are being clipped, translated, and echoed in underground prayer groups, Asian churches, even in European cathedrals. There is a silent movement forming, not rebellion, but reverence. Meanwhile, the Church faces immense storms, geopolitical crises, declining vocations, scandals, and the spiritual apathy of a world drunk on distraction. And in the center of it all, two men now define its future. Pope Leo XIV, chosen by smoke and spirit, Luis Tagle, chosen by the cross. The questions grow louder. What truly happened in the final hours of the conclave? Who pulled the strings and who cut them? Why did Tagle disappear from public view for nearly a month? And what does he know that we don't? Some insiders claim that Cardinal Burke, known for his fierce traditionalism, has played a quiet but pivotal role in blocking Tagle's momentum. That he feared a second Francis gentler, more inclusive, would shift the Church beyond the point of return. Others whisper of unseen great ones within the Curial alliances, its ancient secrets and buried ambitions now stirring beneath the white walls of Vatican City. But for now, Tagle remains silent again. Silent, but not absent, and the world waits. Asterisk. And so he waits not, as a man defeated, but as one consecrated by fire. Luis Antonio Tagle, the man who smiled through tears, whose soul whispered peace, even as the thunders of power chose another, is no longer just a cardinal in exile. He is a silent flame in the shadows of the Vatican, flickering with purpose, unquenched. And the faithful, those who see beyond the incense and procession, are beginning to sense it. Something is shifting, something ancient, something divine. For, within the walls of the Holy See, the spiritual air has grown heavier. The papacy has always been a throne of paradox, the seat of Peter, yet the shadow of Calvary, to where the white is to bleed invisibly each day, for the weight is not merely political. It is mystical. It is the burden of holding back the tides of hell. And as Pope Leo XIV ascended, clothed in the humility of Prevo, the heavens stirred with quiet thunder. But what many do not know is this: the conclave did not end with the white smoke. Began a war. Inside the Vatican, a place gilded with marble, yet cracked by the footfalls of angels and demons alike, two visions for the future of the Catholic Church collide. One, a vision of pastoral tenderness and open arms, carried by men like Tagle. The other, a fortress mentality, guarded tradition, doctrinal rigor, a longing for the old throne of empire. And standing at the crossroads is Pope Leo XIV, chosen by the Spirit. Perhaps but tested now by the tempter. Those who watched the final hours of the conclave say there was a tension in the air. Unlike anything seen since the election of Carol Wojtyła, one bishop reportedly fainted. Another refused to sign the first round of tallies. Cardinal Tagle, though not yet aware he had lost, was said to be praying Psalm 51 beneath his breath. Create in me a clean heart, O God, ... It was not ambition he felt, but purification. But then, the twist no one anticipated, a mysterious delay before the final ballots were confirmed. Whispers suggest the delay was not procedural, it was spiritual. A prominent cardinal allegedly left the chapel to make a call. Security footage later sealed. Other reports speak of an emergency audience granted to an aging cardinal with ties to the Order of Malta. None of it confirmed. All of it real. And then Leo XIV, his name was read. The bells tolled. Tagle vanished. No appearance on the balcony. No interviews. No hand raised in blessing beside the new pontiff. Just silence. And in that silence, the church began to tremble. Across the globe, millions had awaited the image of an Asian Popa, symbol of unity, global mercy, the rising church of the East. But instead, they were met with absence, an absence that spoke volumes. For days, Tagle was unreachable. Rome went still. And then the rumors began. Some claimed he had wept not for himself, but for the church. Others said he had entered a period of voluntary penance, locking himself away in a small chapel near Santa Maria in Trastevere. Still others insisted he was visited by two cloaked monks bearing a letter said to be handwritten by Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI. Before his death-containing prophecies never revealed to the world, we may never know. But what we do know is this. When Tagle finally emerged, his face was different, his voice slower, his eyes haunted by holiness. He spoke not as a man left behind, but as a prophet of what lies ahead in his homily that Sunday. Streamed quietly from the Philippines and barely reported in Western media, Tagle said this: "The church is entering its midnight hour, and in this darkness we will see who carries lamps and who carries swords." A cryptic phrase, but one that is now being repeated across seminaries, monasteries, and even whispered in the halls of the Curia. What did he mean? Who are the lamp bearers? Who are the sword bearers? Is there a division now within the bride of Christ, one so deep, so apocalyptic, that even the papacy itself is only the first domino? Sources close to Tagle now claim that his loss was not only a matter of votes, but of veiled threats. Certain unnamed cardinals, aligned with an ultra-conservative bloc, sometimes called the Custodians, were rumored to have delivered an ultimatum: elect Tagle and face internal schism. They feared his global vision, his softness, his resemblance. To Francis they feared hope Tagle did not fight because, as he would later say in a private retreat, the shepherd does not claw at the staff. He walks behind the sheep, even if wounded. And now, deep within the secret recesses of the Vatican, files have begun to circulate marked with a strange sigilla, seven-pointed star encircling a bleeding chalice. Those who know, know. It is said to be the mark of the Watchers of the Chalice, a clandestine order of theologians and archivists who believe the Church is entering the time foretold in Revelation. They believe that what we are witnessing is not mere politics, but the beginning of the purification of the bride of Christ. They believe Tagle was never meant to ascend the papal throne, because he was meant for something more dangerous. Church is bleeding, the sheep are scattered, the wolves wear collars, and yet the Spirit moves. And as Pope Leo XIV issues quiet reforms and prepares for the highway to heaven Eucharistic revival in America, the question remains, will he walk the road alone? Or will Cardinal Tagle, the man of sorrows, the man who tasted Gethsemane without drinking the cup, rise again, not as pope, but as prophet? Already whispers emerge from underground churches in China, war-torn parishes in Ukraine, and hidden convents in Latin America that a new Marian prophecy has begun to circulate. A vision given to 3 nuns in seclusion, all confirming the same imagia, weeping bishop in red, kneeling before a crucified pope, as angels cry out, the bride must be purified. The meaning is unclear, but the timing divine, asterisk, but how do you purify a bride who is already drenched in incense and tears? This is the question now murmured in the marble tombs of saints, in the silent agony of cloistered nuns, in the tortured dreams of cardinals who still remember the oath they swore beneath Michelangelo's painted heaven. For the Catholic Church Mother and mystery, rock and wound is not merely undergoing a shift of power. She is being prepared, stripped, tested, scorched by celestial fire. The bride of Christ is not just being cleansed. She is being awakened for her final hour. And in this hour, Cardinal Luis Tagle, no longer cloaked in papal possibility, moves like a ghost among marble halls. It's not because he has been cast aside, but because heaven has cloaked him in silence. And silence, in these apocalyptic days, is more thunderous than words. The Church is at war, but not a war of flesh and blood. No, This is not the struggle of politics or popularity. It is a war of principalities, of fallen thrones, of spirits that cling to gold vessels while hating the blood they once carried, and the Vatican behind. The ritual behind the Latin benedictions and veiled processions, a great divide has opened. Some serve the Lamb, others kneel to the dragon. The custodians, they say, still hold power. They guard the ancient scrolls. They manipulate the votes. They whisper in Latin what they dare not say aloud. They believe the Church must return to its former glory, even if it means crucifying those sent to lead her into mercy. They feared Tagle because he loved too much, because his theology was not of Rome, but of the upper room, and yet others hidden, nameless, unknown, even to each other pray for his rise. These are the watchers of the chalice, midwives of the purification. They believe the third secret of Fatima was not just a vision, it was a roadmap, and that the next martyr pope will not die by bullets, but by betrayal. What of Pope Leo XIV? Is he aware? Is he surrounded by angels or by vipers? His papacy, young as it is, already bears the marks of contradiction. He smiles, but his eyes burn. He preaches mercy, yet makes decisions with the steel of Peter. One insider claims Leo carries a hidden journal titled Midnight of the Church. Another says he weeps alone after every midnight mass. Still, no one forgets the gesture. When he kissed Tagle's hand after the conclave, not in dominance, but in brotherhood, did he see what the world could not? That this man, overlooked by ballots but chosen in silence, was more than palpable? That he might one day hold the Church's bleeding heart not in power, but in sacrifice. Meanwhile, the signs multiply. Lightning struck the dome again. A statue of St. Peter wept in Kerala. 3 exorcists in Rome report an increase in apparitions. During mass shadows watching from choir lofts, Latin whispers during consecration. In America, a monstrance reportedly levitated during adoration. In Africa, a teenage girl spoke in perfect Greek and declared, "The hour of sorting has begun. The false shepherds will bleed." And in the middle of all this, Tagle remains still. But his silence is a trumpet blast. Because God does not always raise up warriors on thrones. Sometimes he hides them in caves, in cells, forgotten corners of the world, and sometimes in the shadow of the very seat they were meant to ascend. What if Tagle is not the Pope we lost, but the saint we needed? What if the Holy Spirit, in divine mercy, withheld the papacy to preserve his purity for something greater, a hidden gospel, a secret mission? The final act of mercy before the fire, and now the world tilts, the earth groans, the Church quivers beneath the weight of centuries. And somewhere, as incense rises and candles flicker low, a man walks barefoot across cold Vatican stone, praying not to lead, but to follow. And it is in this moment, this stillness before the storm, that a parchment is discovered in the crypt, beneath St. John Lateran, bound in lambskin. Written in Latin, signed with the blood-red ring of Pope Sylvester II, a prophecy. Sealed for 1,000 years, it reads, "When the dove weeps and the dragon sleeps, a prince in red will fall unseen. But from his silence will rise the voice of the Magdalene. She will cry from the dome, he who is not crowned." He carries the keys. The parchment bears a final mark, a small drop of wax, and pressed into the wax. It's a candy, still wrapped, still sweet, still waiting. Amen.